Okay, good afternoon, everybody, today, and welcome to our webinar organized by Aliran. Today, we're talking about cycling in urban Malaysia and how do we go about making sure it's safe and cool for everybody if they're interested in cycling. And today, we've got our two speakers, guest speakers at the Aliran office. We have Dr. Nadhrah Kadir from USM. She's also the founder and advisor of Bike Commute USM. And we also have Simon, who's a cycling and Simon Tan, who's a cycling enthusiast and an Aliran member. Before we start, welcome to everybody, and we hope that we'll have a Q&A later. And also Simon will also be showing us a few slides midway through our presentation. So we'd like to welcome all of you to this webinar. And first of all, I just introduced our speakers briefly just now. Maybe they could tell us a little more about themselves. We'll start with Dr. Nadhrah.
Thanks, Anil. So I'm Nadhrah. I'm a founder for Bike Commute USM. So what Bike Commute USM is doing at USM, we are basically a group of advocacy group trying to promote cycling, educate people about cycling as a mode of transportation. At the same time, we're trying to reduce our reliance on motor vehicles. We are also working together with USM to improve the environment in USM to make it more safer for everyone to cycle and walk in USM. And also we are actually part of Bike Commute Malaysia, which is an NGO. So we are working together with them as well with a couple of projects, exciting projects. So I will talk more about it later on.
Okay.
But yeah, we are basically trying to educate people to see bicycle as a mode of transport, rather than just a tool for recreational or sports. And also more importantly, you are educating people about, the externalities of negative externalities of core-dependent society. So that's something that we don't really talk about a lot. So we are actually educating people what are the implications, negative implications, not just for individuals, but also for society and the planet. So yeah.
Okay, thanks, Nadhrah. Simon, maybe you could tell us also a bit about yourself, just a short intro, and tell us about what you're doing with your cycling. How did you get interested in cycling?
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Simon. How's the sound? Okay. Yeah, I'm originally from Penang. So I cycled from primary school onwards to go to school, and also during secondary school. So cycling as a commuting has always been something that started a long time ago. Back in those days, I would say about more than half of my class would cycle to school. And I can't remember anyone that has got any injuries from cycling to school, besides some friends like myself who race down hills and crash. But other than that, I think it has been very safe during my time. But of course, things have changed. And now I live in Kuala Lumpur. So about the last 5 years, when I first came down, my working place is KLCC, and I stay in Taman Desa, which is about 12 kilometers away. But the first year, I was just taking the bus because, as you know, driving in KL can be very unpredictable, and you get stuck in traffic when it rains and so on. Then after a while, I found that there was a very good route from Taman Desa to KLCC, using the Taman itself. Taman Desa is an old residential estate with lots of trees and small roads. And then after that, from Mid Valley onwards, we have the River of Life, which is a dedicated cycle pathway all the way to Pasar Seni. And from Pasar Seni to KLCC will be a combination of back lanes, sometimes on the
Okay.
walkways, and also the blue protected lanes.
Thanks,
So
thanks, Simon.
yeah, so that's a
Maybe
bit about
Nadhrah, you
myself.
could tell us how you got interested in cycling.
Well, okay, it's kind of a long story, but I'll try to make it short. But I started cycling when I was in high school. I mean, like, I think I came from the generation who, I mean, like, people still cycling to school. But of course, when I went to unis, we stopped cycling, you know, but we still, I mean, like, I still took bus and walk around. But then when I did my postgraduate studies in the US, I started picking up back, you know, cycling because everyone was cycling around the campus. And so I got used to it. And then when I moved back to Penang, I knew for a fact that I don't want to drive to work. And that's why I kind of settled down like nearby my office. So, but it took me by surprise that I mean, you know, for a short distance, a lot of people are still driving and also riding motorbike. So for me, I mean, I was like wondering why, you know, because on campus, it's not that bad, you know, compared to outside. You know, it's still safe, I think. And so I think that, you know, something needs to change. And so I started gather my students and that's how Bike Commute USM started because we really, I mean, like we want to make a change in terms of like how people move around in a small compound, you know. So cycling is one of the good option, walking is another good option. So that's how we got started, and that's how I, you know, try to encourage more people to take up cycling and also walking, mainly in campus because outside is a bit, you know, it's quite hostile. So yeah.
Okay, could you tell us what was the first thing you noticed when you came back from overseas in terms of how easy it is to cycle or difficult in cycling?
Well, I think that, you know, because Penang, I mean, like, I think the whole Malaysia, you know, we are car-centric nations. So the moment you step out from your home, you see cars and motorbikes everywhere, right? And so I think that, yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, cycling is inherently safe, I would say. You know, the act of pedaling is not the one that poses any danger, but it is the environment that we cycle in, you know, the built environment, our streets and our roads are really hostile, not just for people outside of motor vehicles, but also, you know, if you look at the statistic of crashes, I mean, our roads and streets are really dangerous. And so, but yeah, I mean, like, you know, I would say that in USM itself, it's pretty okay, you know, relatively safe compared to once you go outside to USM. That's why I think that I try to encourage more people to cycle and walk on campus because I think it is doable for a lot of people, you know. So yeah, that's I think how different it is. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Simon, could you tell us what the cycling community in KL is like or elsewhere in Malaysia? I mean, how active is it? Because I notice what we have mostly leisure cyclists rather than commuters. So if people are willing to cycle for leisure, what is stopping people from also cycling to work? So basically, how active is the cycling community in Malaysia?
It's actually a very difficult question because, for one thing, the numbers are actually very low in Kuala Lumpur at the moment. And because we commuters don't cycle at the same time. So it's only the odd occasion that I sometimes meet other cyclists along the route. But over the 4 years, I would have probably met about a dozen along the same route as me for one reason or another. And so there's not that many, and it's very hard to spot us as commuters, unlike recreational cyclists where they have like the Sunday car-free event. Then you find a lot of cyclists on Sunday morning coming to using their bicycles. The second part of the question is why are they not cycling? I think we will delve into that a bit later on. But as Dr. Nadhrah said, it's the built environment. We have built our cities. We like to spread our cities out. We like to have big landed houses. And so the Klang Valley itself is very spread out. So even other form of mobility like public transport is having a great challenge trying to serve commuters who don't want to use their cars.
Okay. Perhaps you could tell me some of the challenges in cycling in USM. I know you've been trying to promote cycling in USM. What percentage of students are cycling, and what's holding them back?
I think compared to when I first started Bike Commute USM, I think we have seen more cyclists on the road, more bike commuters on the road compared to, let's say, 5 years back, especially with the increasing number of international students from China.
So what percentage of students are cycling?
I don't have the number, but it's quite visible. We are quite visible on the streets. But I think, we still have, I think the main challenge is, as people, not just students, but also staff, using motorbikes. So that's another challenge, not just car, but motorbikes. So we have, on average, USM, the motor vehicles that coming in and out every day is 18 to 20K per day. So that's a lot, so I don't have the number for bicycle, but I think we are trying to get more people to cycle. So I think the visibility of people using bicycle is very important, so that it kind of prove others that it is actually doable to cycle on campus. Because you've been to USM, right? So USM is pretty small campus. I would say it's the concept of 15-minute cities, where you can access to various places of interest within 15 minutes of walking or cycling. So USM is like 15-minute campus. So basically you can reach to different places of interest like library, cafe, the mosque within 15 minutes.
But it's also a bit challenging because the roads are a bit hilly and maybe also a bit narrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can we have a conversation later?
Okay. Yeah. So the hills part, and that's kind of the common, often cited, reason why people don't cycle in USM. But I think that it's not, if you, this is the mental map of people who are outside of motor vehicles, because when you're cycling or walking, you can always take a shortcut. And sometimes you can avoid the hilly parts of a USM. But at other time, I think students now they are using e-bike. So e-bike is a good bicycle to navigate the hills. But other than that, there are certain parts where it's not like really steep. It's just a matter of how you get used to it. Yes, at first it's going to be challenging, but after a while you get used to it, and so there's no problem for you actually. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Simon, you mentioned that that when you were younger, students used to cycle to school, and in fact, in my own school, I used to see a lot of bicycles and a few motorbikes for those more senior students. But what has changed since then, and how do we encourage cycling among students again?
I think I will speak from the Penang context. Okay. Okay. What I've noticed in Penang is that over the years, that when I was cycling to school, it was the late 70s, and the 80s are more or less the same. My school was in Green Lane. So in those days, Green Lane was just a 2-lane road. But as the traffic increases, the roads get wider, and usually the trees disappeared as well to make way for the road widening. When the tree disappears, it gets hotter. So the cycling condition becomes less desirable, and then that leads on to and then as more and more people drive, then the perception that cycling becomes dangerous, because when when I relate back to my first year back in KL, I was saying that it's impossible to cycle from Taman Desa to KLCC because the buses and the cars goes on the highway, and everyone knows that it's very dangerous to cycle on the highway because of the speed differential. So when a speeding car at 70 or 80 passes by you, you can really feel the wind. But when I go back to Penang, when I cycle, say I want to cycle from say Gama or Komta towards MBS. If you are a driver, you always think that let's use Dato Kramat Road because that's what Waze or Google Map will tell you to do. But when I cycle from Gama to MBS, I don't touch Dato Kramat Road at all. I use the back roads, Jalan Terang, and then use like Jalan Timah, and then through Patani Road, and through by the river, and then through Jalan Gema, Jalan Piramli, and the back of what's that road? I think it's called Rawang Road, and then go along Jalan Gemas, and you reach MBS. And it's very much safer route and very much more shady too. So things have changed because the road design and conditions have been made biased to the cars.
Okay, thanks. Nadhrah, the usage of public transport in Penang is quite low, and one of the reasons cited is the lack of first and last mile connectivity.
Yeah.
And in other countries, perhaps people are cycling to public transport hubs and parking the bicycles there and switching, or even maybe taking their bicycles on board.
Right.
So how far have you gone down this road here in Malaysia, and has it been successful?
Yeah, I mean, first and last mile is always an issue, especially going to train stations or bus stations, right? And so I think they need to be like, because the built environment, we don't have the connections from, residential area, and then going to train stations, even for walking, not talking about cycling, even if you need to walk to train stations or bus stations, sometimes it's really challenging for us here in Malaysia. So I think that definitely we need to improve a lot in terms of built environment. But here's the thing, I think before we talk about infrastructure, I think there are other things that we need to improve as well. Should I talk about it? I mean,
Yeah, go ahead.
okay. So I mean, this is, I think, the one way to encourage people to cycle, right? Because I think that the main reason that really holding us back from taking up cycling is because it's too dangerous to cycle. Right, too many cars, high speed traffic, and then you have to share the road with other motor vehicles. So basically, we don't have dedicated or protected or separated bike lanes. I mean, we have here in Penang, but not comprehensive enough, right? And so I think that in order for a lot of people to switch mode, not just for cycling or walking, but more importantly for public transportation. Because we mentioned about, how to connect, cycling and walking to public transportation, or integrate this mode of transportations with public transportation, right? And I think that public transportation need to be improved first. Like we need not just comprehensive, but also reliable public transportations. But also the built environment, the way that we design our streets, obviously like Mr. Simon mentioned just now, favored towards motor vehicles infrastructure, right?
Simon, you got some slides
Yeah.
for us. Maybe after Nadhrah has finished, you can show us your slides.
Yeah.
What are some design changes that could be incorporated in Malaysian cities?
So, I mean, these are the things like, are you familiar with this hierarchy of controls in OSHA?
No.
So essentially what this hierarchy of control is like a framework that people use in occupational safety and health, to protect workers from hazards, right? So this inverted triangle has this concept of like what are the things that we need to do, measures that say government need to do to improve or to encourage people to cycle. So the first layer is eliminations. There are 5 layers. So first elimination, what does it mean by elimination? We need to eliminate the hazards. So what are the hazards for people cycling and walking? Motor vehicles, right? So we need to, slowly remove these hazards, right? Like, for example, we can do like car-free zone, for example, or in other part of the world, they call it low traffic neighborhood, low emission zone. So these are some of the things that we can do. The second one is when you eliminate this hazard, and then you have to provide alternative, isn't it? Right? Because people are going to get, how do people move around, without alternative or substitutions, right? So the second layer is substitution. So we need to replace, public transportation that's why it's crucial, play a crucial role here, to give people alternative to get out from the car, right? Or motorbikes, to use these public transportations. And we also can promote what do you call that, cycling and walking here, or using e-scooter. And then the third layer is engineering control. This is where we build the infrastructure for cycling, which what makes it important for this infrastructure to be in place is that it has to be protected and separated.
Maybe on that note, maybe Simon, you can show us some of the design things you wanted to show us.
Sorry, I click on the share. Okay, let's stop.
Okay, well, we wait for some.
Yeah.
Can carry on.
Okay, so the thing about bike infrastructure in Malaysia is that very rarely we have like protected bike lane. So the one that you see is always like a bicycle logo on the roads, like what we call it sharrows. So that does nothing. Do you really expect people to cycle when you see this bike logo on the road? Of course not, right? Because when you mix cyclists with other fast-moving motor vehicles, it poses a lot of danger to cyclists. That's why we need a protected bike lane. The one that we have here in Penang is, yes, we have sharrows, but we also have these dedicated and separated bike lane from Georgetown to all the way to the second bridge.
Yeah, I mean, the state government in Penang has tried to introduce bike lanes, the local council, I think. In town, they have shared bike lanes on the road and on the pavement sometimes.
Yes.
But also they have dedicated bike lanes like you've shown us. But
right.
I don't see much of a take up on these.
No, I mean, I think that for that, the what do you call it, the bike lane along the coast is basically mainly for people to, for recreation, for fun. But I do know some people use that for commuting. But right now they have like huge construction near the light, right? So it's pretty bad actually, even though they said that we are going to open up a temporary lane, but it's actually quite bad. But actually, it's actually the bike lane is along a few residential areas. So, and also few shop lots, commercial areas. So actually it's quite a strategic location if people really make use of it for commuting. And then another one is in Bayan Baru. They just construct a new bike lane, across Pantai Hospital. So that is a good as well, because you have two schools over there and a hospital and then Giant, grocery for grocery shopping. But the thing is, this is Malaysia, like you have this bike lane and then they have like, you have 4 lanes of roads, like fast moving vehicles. And then it's very challenging to actually cross the road. Some of the traffic light for pedestrian doesn't work. And then even though they put zebra crossing, it's not race crossing. So this is another thing, what we call traffic calming measure, that is very important to to protect cyclists or pedestrians. But the thing is that they just put, zebra crossing and expect people to cross on a fast moving lane. That's not going to work, So
I think one of the problems, Simon,
Sorry,
have you got your slides ready?
no, I have a problem. I can't.
Okay, one of the problems we have is the cycling infrastructure seems to be focused on a particular area, and I think there's no interconnection with other areas.
True.
Which I think Singapore has come up with a cycling master plan, and they're trying to connect the cycling network across Singapore. But we don't see that happening here. So there doesn't seem to be some kind of a overall planning for cycling in the infrastructure, even for new housing areas, apart from Sri Tanjung Pinang area. I don't see many other housing areas having good cycling infrastructure.
Because that's the thing, because we don't prioritize things, like I said, with this hierarchy of controls, we should prioritize this thing. But I'm very frustrated, actually, not frustrated. I mean, how do I put it? I mean, because we tend to focus on the bottom one, which is, administrative controls, like putting signboards of 30 km, trying to encourage people to drive slowly. But I don't think this is effective enough. And then the last one is what we call PPE, personal protection, what do you call that?
Equipment.
Equipments, like helmets or high vis, right? So every single meeting, safety meeting that I went to, people tend to focus on the least effective measures. We're not focusing on the top one, which is the most effective one, right? So really, if we are serious about encouraging people to take up cycling, we need to focus on what is the most important thing.
Right.
So, but we are not doing it at the moment.
Yeah, I understand there's a cycling master plan policy 2019 to be cycle-friendly nation by 2030 or something.
In Penang?
Like whole country?
The whole country? I mean, they have one in KL, but I don't think there's a follow-up for it. One in Penang. I think, I would give credits where it's due. I think the state government is doing some good thing as well. But the need for us to, tackle this cost-centric urban design, cost-centric policy, I think we're not doing great enough, to really reduce our dependence to motor vehicles. Unless we tackle that first, then I don't think we can get enough number of people who are cycling.
Okay.
So
Simon, you ready?
No, I'm sorry. I have my new laptop. I have some problems with the setup.
Okay, it's okay.
So I can't share the photos. But anyway, I try to describe a few examples, because these are things that have already been done in some places. So normally as a cyclist, one of the most difficult and dangerous maneuver is to do a right turn at the traffic lights. Because if you are pretending to be a car, you'll be slowing down the car behind. And if you pretend to be a motorcyclist, the car in front will cut you off. So it's quite dangerous to do a right-hand turn at the traffic light. So normally what I do is that I become a pedestrian when I reach a traffic light. I will ride to the side, to the left-hand side, get off my bicycle, or if that traffic light is very unconfident, I'll cycle. Then I become a pedestrian and use a pedestrian crossing to do the right turn. But I have to go through 2 sets of pedestrian crossing. So that makes it a bit troublesome. But just let me finish. Because So that's how I do it. But if there are certain traffic lights like the one in Commute, where there's one phase where everybody cross. So I can do that diagonal cross to do the right turn as a pedestrian. So that's
Okay.
one thing.
Yeah.
So those traffic lights where there are pedestrian crossings with red lights, then if the council can introduce this so-called pedestrian phase, crossing phase, then that will help. So that's the one in Commute. In Kuala Lumpur, I think the one in the picture I sent in Brickfields does that. And then the second thing is that if we go one step backwards, many traffic lights all over the country has no pedestrian crossing. So if the pedestrians are helped, the cyclists will appreciate that very much.
Okay.
So
Apart from the safety aspect, the other argument often used is that
Jalan Datuk Kramat and Petani Road crossing. I think that was featured in Evelyn's video.
the other argument often used against cyclists is that cycling is that the weather is too hot. But I know you have done some adaptation to cater to this kind of weather when you're cycling. Could you explain how you cool down while you're cycling?
Okay. We know that Malaysia always has lots of it's hot and sunny. So the most basic one is that try to cycle in the early morning and late evening or at night, where the sun is less intense. Secondly, like myself, I have to go anytime when somebody wants to meet me in town. So if it's a hot day, then I will put on long sleeves. So I have my cycling jersey, and then I put on my hand socks, and I wear my cycling pants are long pants because that keeps the sun away. And the other tip is to wear white color, because when you wear white, you reflect away the sun. And white is also the most visible color when you're on the road, especially at night. The lights from the headlights will reflect the white clothing. So that's what I do to keep myself cool while cycling.
Okay, thanks. The other thing which I think is holding back people from commuting to work using bicycles is that many employers don't provide shower facilities or changing rooms. So
Right. Yeah.
In other countries, how do they go about it? Do they give incentives to employers to provide these kinds of facilities, or is it left to each employer?
Yeah.
What do you think can be done?
Well, I think there are incentives given by employers. If you're talking about we call that facilities, bike facility end of trip bike facilities like shower room, if you need to have access to shower room, for example, and then lockers and things like that. Bike parking is the most important thing as well, something that sometimes we tend to forget about, where to park our bikes, right?
Yeah.
So that's very important. So one thing that I think is also a big challenge here in Malaysia, because not many let's say malls or buildings that would provide bike parkings, but at least in Penang I've seen a couple, and in Putrajaya as well at some of the offices. But quite surprisingly at Comtar level 5, MPB does provide all these bike facilities, so it's actually quite friendly to cyclists. But I don't know like how many people are actually cycling to work, but they have ample bike parking. They have shower room. They even have they have this tax rebate that were given to any staff who buy bicycle. So I think that's kind of interesting as well, just to encourage more people to cycle. But again, I think the incentive might not work well if you don't really solve the main issue, which is safety, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Thanks. So let's move on to questions from our audience. We got Paul Hyung Hong, it's talking about Bike Commute USM is raising funds to provide new bicycles for students, encouraging eco-friendly transport, promoting active and healthier lifestyles, and reducing dependence on motor vehicles on campus. And we have got Koo saying that the Penang bike lanes often can't be used. They are either too narrow or will hit on trees in the middle.
Yep.
And Kyung Hong is saying that's why pedestrians and cyclists must reclaim the street and public spaces. Sharum Zainal says that he showers in the toilet every day at work.
Yeah.
I presume that means he's at work.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, you wanted to say something, observation? Use the mic, use the mic. Turn on the mic.
You got it?
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Simon, haven't seen him in about 3 years already.
Okay.
Oh.
So
Your question?
anyway, when you said 15-minute city,
Ah.
I've seen a few videos.
Right.
They don't say 50 minutes in terms of walking, cycling, or car, motorcycle, or public transport. So when they say 15-minute city, what do they mean?
Well, my understanding is that, you can access to places of interest.
Yeah,
like,
your workplace,
Yeah.
shops,
Mhm.
library, things like that.
Yeah, within
15
15
minutes from
minutes.
your residence.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But 15 minutes in terms of walking,
Yeah, I
or-
mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, like, if you
Oh.
can walk 15 minutes or less
Yeah,
than 15 minutes,
because
that's fine.
if
Yeah, it's just like the way that they, what do you call that? Structured design
Yeah,
the
yeah.
city, right?
so
Yeah.
it's not like 10 miles away,
Nah.
all the office,
No,
and then
yeah.
5 miles away, all the shops,
Yeah,
and so that's not 15 minutes already, So yeah, I know the concept of 15-minute city. So they're not actually talking about 15 minutes by walking, or 15 minutes by cycling, 15 minutes by public transport, or 15 minutes by personal motorized vehicle, right? Car or motorcycle. So 15 minutes doesn't really any particular mode of 15 minutes, right?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, like, if you stand, walk, or cycle, but I think essentially it means that it's easy access
Easy
to
access.
easy
Yeah,
access
you don't have to
It's
go,
nothing-
you have to
you
go.
don't have to rely on cars or
Yeah,
motorbike.
yeah.
Right?
If you live in Aitam and you work in Pine Le Pas,
No, that's not
well,
easy. Yeah.
yeah. You need definitely motorcycle or car.
Yeah.
Nothing else is going to
Yeah.
work,
I didn't get your name?
Freddy.
Freddy.
Yeah. So anyway, this is cycling is an issue that's very important to me.
Mm.
I cycle here.
Mhm.
Okay. So
Where do you live? Where do you live?
reference.
Okay.
It's actually not that far.
Yeah.
But again, it comes down to the infrastructure. Okay. I got hit by cars and motorcycles 4 times in less than 2 years.
Wow.
Okay. Luckily, not serious injury or things like that, but I did twist my wrist once, and it took almost a year, 10 months, 11 months before I completely feel the pain is gone. There's lingering pain for months, but anyway, there are actually a lot of issues regarding cycling.
Yeah.
Not just safety, but also security, So I've heard that some city councils in the Netherlands, not all, I think, just some only, when it comes to approving new business license or renewing existing business license, they actually ask the business owner, whether it's a office building or a shop, they ask them, number one, what do you do to encourage your staff to cycle to work? And number two, what do you do to encourage customers or visitors to cycle to your office or shop? And those businesses that spend the money, like for instance, shower or sheltered cycling racks, right? sheltered, secure cycling racks so that the staff can leave their bicycles safely locked somewhere when they go inside and work the whole day, they have peace of mind, you know. So they give incentive if businesses spend the money on doing these things to encourage people to come by bike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. We also have some comments from Hyung Hong. Hyung Hong, would you like to come to the mic and share with us your thoughts?
Yeah.
Hi, Anil. Yeah, no, it's actually not a comment. I was sharing some information about what 15-minute city is. Because just now, was it Freddie? He was asking what is it 15 minutes by what, right? It's actually by non-motor vehicle, which means walking, cycling, or taking a public transit. It's not through cars or motorcycles. Yeah. So yeah, that's all.
Okay,
Thank you, Anil,
thanks.
and all the
Cool. You want to come to the mic and say something about accidents? No, anyway, cool says that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, about accidents. I've personally seen many students, school students, that actually engage in accidents for every year. So either they lost their life, lost their legs.
I think we can't hear you too well over here. Just read out your comment. For the accident that happened, can we take the people's representative and the council to court for failing to protect the people's safety? Is that possible?
Well, I mean, someone has to take responsibility, right? But unfortunately, that's not how it works in Malaysia, because road safety, I mean, like traffic fatalities is really it should be a public health crisis in Malaysia, because the numbers are so alarming. But here's the thing, you know, because I don't think that we have done enough when it comes to road crashes. Because really, you know, traffic injuries and death really put a strain on our public health sector. This is all the negative externalities of codependency in our society that we often overlook. You know, not just traffic death and injuries, but also from other from public health lens, could be NCDs, you know, non-communicable diseases, because we are not a healthy nation, right? And so, but unfortunately, you know, even Ministry of Health never talk anything about, I mean, like speak on anything about from our mobility habits, you know, like how driving and riding motorbikes everywhere, even for a short distance, could lead to sedentary lifestyle, right? And there are plenty of research out there that shows that people who live in walkable and bikeable cities, they are less likely to get.
And you can even quantify the
exactly.
the costs.
Yeah,
the healthcare
exactly.
costs, right?
Yeah. And it's not just public health, you know, environmental issues as well, pollutions, you know, transportation contribute, I think, the second largest emissions, you know, to the environment. And then how the land use as well, you know, how actually core dependency, core infrastructure is actually pushing people out of the cities, you know, and you have to depend on motor vehicles just to commute to work. Because you live far away from your office, and public transportation is not reliable enough. And so you have to have your own motorbike, motor vehicles, you know, just to commute, right? And then in terms of space inefficiency rather, you know, we allocate a lot of our parking spaces. Even so, I mean, people are still like parking indiscriminately everywhere.
Blocking the bicycle lanes as well.
Exactly, yeah. So those are really, and I think another thing that we also don't really talk about, which is financial constraint. Like imagine if we have a good public transportation network, you could save a lot of money, you know, because car ownership, it costs a lot. You know, we're not talking just about monthly installment. We're talking about additional cost, maintenance. You know, you have to buy gas.
Yeah, it's a huge
exactly.
portion of the monthly budget.
Exactly.
Before we wrap up, I think we should wrap up soon. I'd just like to pose questions, couple of questions to Nadhrah and Simon. If you had the chance to advise the government what should be done to improve cycling, to encourage cycling in Malaysia, what are the two things you would recommend to them, to the authorities? Simon?
Yeah, a lot of things to recommend.
So we just stick to two.
Okay,
Two top things you would ask for.
two top things. I think the first one I mentioned before was about making the place more friendly for pedestrian and cyclists with decent and I would say mandatory walkways, because when you build a road for people to use, you should always have walkways. But unfortunately, if you go to many places, there's even no walkways. So that very basic things need to be addressed. And then the second one is some kind of campaign or publicity to show the benefits of cycling. Because for myself, I can see that besides a mobility device for me to get around, I also enjoy cycling from the health point of view, as mentioned earlier by Dr. Nadhrah, the benefits of cycling, that certain research, I think there's one from the Netherlands that shows how much they save on public health.
Yeah, you've
And
written about it, I think.
yeah,
Articles about that, right?
yeah,
On the Aliran website.
yeah. So we need to show the benefits, and of course the cost wise is quite hard to show, because we are blessed with subsidized petrol. But I think I did mention that I own a diesel car, so now I have a 200 ringgit subsidy from the government. So it encouraged me to use my car less, so I can use the 200 ringgit to have a coffee or to buy something on the way when I cycle.
Okay, thanks, Simon. Nadhrah, just to wrap up, my final question to you is, you are involved in Bike Commute, right? And I think Vice
Malaysia.
President.
Yeah, back to
Yeah.
Malaysia, yeah.
So what do you think the cycling community in Malaysia and the larger public can do to lobby for better infrastructure, making it easier for cyclists, more people to cycle?
Right.
What strategy or campaign do you think?
Yeah, I think Bike Commute Malaysia is doing an outstanding work in KL with their project.
Maybe you might want to tell people how to
Yeah, sure.
get involved.
So they are doing this project. I think they just completed probably the first phase. Well, I think it's already completed. This Safer Streets to School at SK Danau Kota. And we're hoping to do the similar project here in Penang as well. And this is a collaboration with a lot of collaboration with local authorities, like in KL, DBKL, and here we have talked with MPUB and local councillors, various stakeholders, teachers, and also PTA, parents, and so I think it's very important project just to show, to make sure that school zones are safer for kids to walk and cycle, because I think that with this kind of project, I think it will convince the local authority that they always to solve issues of in terms of safety, right? So I think that this could be a springboard to bigger thing, because I think that social movement is very important, and I was inspired by how things work in the Netherlands, how it started with social movements. Because the the civil societies was very vibrant at the time. It was triggered by the road crashes as well, like us here in Malaysia. But we pretty much like do nothing, right? So I think that it's very important for social movements, and not just social movement. And I think that we also need institutional supports, from be it practitioners and also politicians. I know that this kind of issues, especially on how to reduce codependency, is quite it involves competing objective goals and interests, right? And to some extent, very political as well. But I think that we can come on the same page when it comes to road safety, because I think that's a really huge issue for us. I think we need to tackle that first before we can encourage more people to
Yeah,
cycle.
that's a
Yeah.
good point because many people will be quite worried about cycling on the roads.
Yeah.
Some final points from our online audience. We have Sharum saying the building of new highways also makes cycling more dangerous.
Right. Absolutely.
And Hyung Hong says public funds could be better used without building more and more highways, which only enrich developers and incentivizes more people to drive.
Yep.
Then Sharum says, whenever governments are building roads, they should include roads for bicycles and pedestrians. And Fakrusi asks whether the best way to get people off their cars is to incentivize people to buy e-bicycles or mopeds. Yeah.
But that has to be like, we need a safe environment. We need a safer streets, right? So I think that by tackling these issues, providing a safer environment, built environment, and a safer street for people, not just for cyclists, actually, for everyone. It's more inclusive, right? And what do you call that? Accessible for everybody. And I think, drivers should support us as well, because if more people can use public transport or can cycle, that would leave a lot of rooms for them, to drive if they need to, right? Yeah. So
Okay, finally, just one sentence from both of you to wrap up this webinar today. Simon?
Okay, I just like to tag on the road crashes, because I think that is one of the so-called topic that will touch more people. As Dr. Nadhrah said, if more people cycle, there'll be less cars, or they use public transport. So that concept of one bus can carry is equivalent to 30 cars has to be drummed in. A lot of people don't see that, because this week DBKL just introduced bus lanes into Old Klang Road, and there's a big outcry because they say that now the cars have not enough space. So that concept has to be so-called explained more detail. And the other point, there was somebody who brought up about local council responsibility. Yes, unfortunately, our roads are built by different authorities. Some are by JKR, federal, some are local council, some are even private. So, and then they just clean themselves, say, oh, somebody else built the road, so I'm not responsible. But I think there was a case recently that a man who died because his motorcycle fell after going through a pothole, and the family was successful in suing the local council for damages. And then another recent experience I had was there was a massive development plan for Taman Desa, and the residents, through the Taman Desa Resident Association, made a lot of noise. So our MP Teresa Kok has to do to soothe down the temperature by calling a meeting with DBKL. And I went to that meeting, and not surprised at about probably 50% of the people who stand up to say, no, we object to this development because it will bring in more cars, and then it will take up our parking space, it will jam our roads, and then when I go shopping, I have no place to park. So that was the team, but they didn't see that So the developers say, oh, no, don't worry, we'll build more roads to solve your problem.
Okay,
But
thanks, Simon.
nobody
Thanks,
nobody
Simon.
saw that
We'll
from
love to hear.
the public transport point of view or from the cycling point of view, which I brought up.
Okay,
So
thanks.
yeah.
Thank you. So on that note, we'll wrap it up for today. I'd like to thank our audience for coming, joining us today, and a big thank you to Nadhrah and Simon for your inspiring thoughts. They are actually, people like them and Frankie are actually pioneers, and all the others who are cycling are actually pioneers showing a new way forward for Malaysia, the more sustainable way forward. And I think we should try and lobby our elected representatives and the media to highlight the cause of cycling and try to bring about the change that we all hope for.
Mhm.
Thank you, everybody, and see you
Thank
again.
you. Bye, Simon.
Thank you.